In this lesson, we will be looking at solving some different rational equations. And so here's our first one, 9 over 28 plus 3 over x plus 2 equals 3 over 4. So we do have variables in the denominator, and we need to be able to get those out of there so that we can solve. The best strategy, I think, is to look at your whole entire equation and think about what would be your common denominator of every term on either side of the equal sign. So I have a 28 here and I have a 4 here. Of course, my common denominator between 4 and 28 is 28. So if I look at just the numbers, my common denominator is 28, and then I have this x plus 2 here as well. So my common denominator is actually 28 times x plus 2. So the bottom line is you need to get everything, you need to bring those variables that are in the denominator to the numerator. And the way you do that is you multiply every single term through by the common denominator. And again, the common denominator is 28 times x plus 2. And as long as I multiply every term by that on either side of the equal sign, that is a legal move. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay? When I do that, and by the way, this is over 1, right? So when I do that, here is what happens. On this far left term here, the 28 cancels. And then I basically have 9 times x plus 2, which I will distribute through. Okay? So the net gives me 9x plus 18. Okay? When I look at the next term, my x plus 2's are going to cancel. So I have 28 times 3, and 28 times 3 gives me 84 equals, and then over here, this 4 will cancel with this 28 and make 7. So then I have 3 times 7, which is 21. Okay, so 3 times 7 is 21, which I then need to distribute to that x plus 2. Okay, so when I do that, I will have 21x plus 42. Then on the left, of course, I will combine my 18 and my 84, and I will have 9x plus 102. And then from here, I'm just going to solve. So I will subtract 21x, and I will get negative 12x plus 102 equals 42. And then, of course, subtract 102. So negative 12x equals negative 60. Divide by negative 12. And x equals 5. You need to check these, or at least plug them into the equation and make sure that x is not something that it can't equal, not something that makes the denominator 0. For instance, in this problem right here, x could not be negative 2 because negative 2 plus 2 would be 0, which would make that denominator be 0, which is illegal. So it's okay in this case that x is 5. If you want to go ahead and check it, you can. But at the very least, look at your denominators and make sure that x is not something that would turn that denominator into 0. Okay, so there's our first one. All right, here again, this is pretty similar. But if I look at my common denominators, I have a common denominator of 24 and 4. Or when I compare 24 and 4, my common denominator is 24. And then, so my common denominator there would be 24. And then I have this other term here, which is 3 minus x. So my common denominator is 24 and 3 minus x. And so that's what I will multiply everything through by, 24 and 3 minus x. Okay? So then, on this far left term, the 24's cancel, and I have 5 times that. So I have 5 times 3 minus x. Okay, in the next term, my 3 minus x's cancel, and I have 24 times 2. Whoops, not equal sign there, sorry. Plus. 24 times 2 is 48. And then on the other side, this 4 will cancel with this 24 and become 6. 1 times 6, of course, is 6. So I have 6 times 3 minus x. So over here, I have 15 minus 5x plus 48 equals, when I distribute the 6 through, I will have 18 minus 6x Combine your like terms, you'll have negative 5x plus 63 equals 18 minus 6x. Add this 6x over. X plus 63 equals 18. Subtract 63. And x equals negative 45. Okay, that should be the answer, but again, I want you to plug it in and make sure it's not something that would make a denominator 0. And if I plug it in right up here, it's okay that x is negative 45. It will not make that denominator be 0. All right, so this one's a little trickier. We have to think about factoring this a little bit before we can do some common denominators. So this term right here factors as x and x, 1 and 2, minus and minus. Okay, so if I look at all the different denominators, I have an x minus 1, I have an x minus 2, and of course this one has both an x minus 1 and an x minus 2. And your common denominator would be every different thing kind of put together. So your common denominator would be x minus 1 and x minus 2. Every different expression put together. So I am going to multiply each term by x minus 1 and x minus 2. That is going to bring those variables out of the denominator so that we can bring them to the numerator and solve them. Okay? So when I do this far left side, what will happen is the x minus 1s will cancel, and I will have 4x right here times x minus 2. Okay? In the next term, I have a minus sign, and I have to be really careful about that. And then the x minus 2's will cancel, and I will have 5x times x minus 1. Okay, then on the right side, the x minus 1 and the x minus 2 will all cancel, and the only thing I will have left is 2. Okay, so over here then, if I distribute this through, I will have 4x squared minus 8x. Now, when there's a minus sign, you have to be really careful. This whole thing needs to be distributed through. It needs to be distributed through the whole parentheses. So then I have negative 5x squared plus 5x equals 2. And then I will combine my like terms, and this gives me negative x squared, and this gives me negative 3. And then I will move everything to the right side to make it be positive. Oops, I forgot my x right there. Move that to the right side to make it positive, and so this will become x squared plus 3x plus 2 equals 0. And then I can factor this, and it factors as x plus 1 and x plus 2. And then of course here x will be negative 1, and here x will be negative 2. Okay? And again, I need to make sure that when I plug those in, it's not going to make my denominator be 0, which it does not in this case. So both of these would work. All right, and a last one here. If I factor this, it factors as r minus 1 and r plus 1. Okay, so your common denominator is r minus 1 and r plus 1. I need to get every different expression in there. So I'm going to multiply this by r minus 1, r plus 1. And I will multiply this term by r minus 1, r plus 1. And this term by r minus 1, r plus 1. Okay? So here we go. With this far term, we already know that r minus 1 times r plus 1 is r squared minus 1. So I'm going to just multiply that out right now. R squared minus 1. And I have to take r times that quantity. Okay? Then in the next term, my r plus 1, r minus 1 will cancel with my r plus 1, r minus 1. So I don't need to worry about that. And then I will have r squared minus 5. And then on the next one, I will have r plus 1s that will cancel, and I will have r minus 1 times r squared plus r plus 2. Okay, so I took this times that. That's what I'm doing. All right, here we go. Now, we need to distribute here, and so when we do that, I distribute this through, And I get r cubed minus r plus r squared minus 5 equals. Now, on the right, you get to take the r and put it all the way through first. So distribute that. And when I do that, I have r cubed plus r squared plus 2r. Now I need to take the negative 1 all the way through. So then I have negative r squared minus r minus 2. Okay, and I'm going to kind of combine my like terms and move some things around here. So, on the left, I will have r cubed plus r squared minus r minus 5. On the right, I have r cubed. These two will cancel each other. And then 2r minus r is 1r. And then, of course, the minus 2. Okay? So I can first of all get rid of these r cubes. Most of you can probably think about just leaving that. Then I will take this r and I will subtract it over here. And I will add the 2 at the same time. Okay, so that's gone, that's gone. And what I now have left is r squared minus 2r minus 3. Okay, and then that will factor here as r minus 3 and r plus 1. And so here r equals 3, and here r equals negative 1. But again, I want you to plug them in and make sure that that does not make any of your denominators be 0. And the problem is if you plug in negative 1, if I plug in negative 1 right here, negative 1 squared is 1, minus 1 is 0. So negative 1 isn't going to work because it will make that denominator be 0. And that's not okay. So r equals 3 is actually the only solution in this case.